It's fascinating how our bodies keep score of the things we don't say out loud. The arguments we never resolved, the grief we buried, the shame we tucked away neatly so no one could see. It doesn't just disappear, it settles in. It lingers. And before we know it, that emotional baggage shows up as tight shoulders, a clenched jaw, stomach aches that doctors can't explain, or this constant exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to fix. I remember reading a study that said unprocessed emotions, things like anger, fear, shame, activate the same stress pathways in our body as physical danger. So when we carry those things for years, it's like living in a house where the fire alarm never stops ringing, and eventually the body says, enough. When we suppress emotions instead of working through them, the body takes the hit. Chronic stress increases cortisol, which over time disrupts sleep, blood pressure, and immunity. That's why emotional baggage often feels like migraines, gut issues, or back pain. The body whispers until it has to scream. And here's the thing, we don't always connect the dots. We wake up with tension headaches, or we notice our shoulders creeping up toward our ears by the end of the day, and we just assume it's because of bad posture or maybe too much time on our phones. But what if it's more than that? What if our bodies are carrying emotions we haven't dealt with, and the only way they know how to speak up is through pain or discomfort? I came across research that really stuck with me. Scientists found that when people chronically suppress anger, grief, or fear, their stress hormones stay elevated, almost like the body is bracing for impact that never comes. Imagine standing at a crosswalk, waiting for a car to hit you, and it just never does. But your body doesn't know that. It's still pumping adrenaline, still tightening muscles, still racing your heart, as if danger is seconds away. That's what carrying unresolved emotional baggage feels like inside our nervous system. Now, when stress hormones like cortisol stay high, they start to chip away at our health. It's not just I'm stressed. It becomes I can't sleep, or I'm always tired no matter what, or my stomach knots up every time I walk into that office. That's not weakness. It's physiology. Our bodies are wise, and they will get our attention one way or another. And let me be really clear here. Your body is not betraying you. It's protecting you. That tightness in your chest before a difficult conversation, the nausea before speaking up, the back pain that flares when you feel cornered, these aren't random inconveniences. They're signals. They're invitations to pause and ask, what am I really carrying? Think about how often we say things like, I just need to power through, or I don't have time to deal with this right now. We wear exhaustion as a badge of honor. But our bodies don't care about our to-do lists. They care about truth. They care about honesty. And when we silence emotions long enough, the body becomes the storyteller. It starts writing chapters through insomnia, chronic tension, migraines, digestive issues. Whatever language it can use to get our attention. I'll tell you something that still makes me catch my breath when I think about it. There was a study that looked at people who had been through major life stressors, divorce, job loss, trauma. And researchers found that those who never acknowledged or processed those experiences were significantly more likely to develop long-term health problems. Not because they were unlucky, not because their bodies failed them, but because the unspoken weight kept pressing down until their bodies had no choice but to sound the alarm. So maybe the question isn't, why am I always in pain? Maybe the real question is, what am I carrying that I haven't set down yet? Because here's the truth. When we leave emotions unspoken, the body keeps the record. And if we want to change the way stress shows up in our lives, we can't just treat the headache or the stomach ache or the fatigue. We have to listen to the deeper story our body is trying to tell us. Our nervous system isn't just about survival. It's also the storage unit of unprocessed pain. Traumas, even small ones we've brushed off, can keep our system stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. That's why people who carry heavy emotional histories often feel on edge or shut down without even knowing why. When most of us think of trauma, we imagine big, obvious events: violence, disasters, loss. But the nervous system doesn't just log the big traumas. It remembers the subtle ones too. The time you were humiliated in front of the class and no one came to your defense. The years of criticism that chipped away at your confidence. Even the moments you swallowed your feelings to keep the peace at home. Those experiences may not leave visible scars, but the nervous system takes notes. And it doesn't forget. Here's what happens. The nervous system is designed to protect us. When something painful or threatening occurs, it flips into survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze. That's brilliant when we're in danger. But when the experience isn't processed, when it's too much to feel, or when no one gives us the safety to talk about it, the nervous system stays there. It's like a switch that got flipped on and never fully turned off. And so years later, we may find ourselves reacting to everyday stressors as if they're life or death situations. The boss sends a curt email, and suddenly our heart races, our palms sweat. A loved one raises their voice, and our body goes rigid, shutting down. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between then and now. It just says, this feels familiar. Danger must be here again. That's why some of us live with a constant edge of anxiety, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Others may feel disconnected, numb, like we're watching life from behind glass. Both are signs of a nervous system carrying old weight. I want to pause here and name something important. This isn't about weakness. This isn't about not being resilient enough. It's biology. It's the way the human body was designed to protect us. The tragedy is when we mistake those survival responses for personality flaws, when we label ourselves as too sensitive or overreactive or cold. The truth is, those are protective strategies. They're the nervous system's best attempt to keep us safe long after the original threat is gone. And the longer we ignore this, the more it affects us physically. A dysregulated nervous system isn't just about feelings. It shows up as chronic tension, sleep problems, high blood pressure, even compromised immunity. When the body is always braced for danger, it doesn't have the space to rest, heal, or repair. But here's where hope lives. The nervous system is adaptable. Just as it learns fear, it can also learn safety. Healing begins when we recognize that our reactions make sense in light of our history. When we stop shaming ourselves for being too much or not enough, and instead start listening to what our body is telling us. That awareness is the first step toward calming the alarm bells and teaching the nervous system that the danger has passed. Because at the end of the day, the nervous system doesn't want to live in fight, flight, or freeze. It wants balance, it wants connection, and the more we give ourselves compassion, the more space we create for the body to finally exhale. Shame's one of the most corrosive emotions, and when we don't talk about it, it doesn't go away. It burrows deeper. The body then carries it like a heavy backpack, and over time, that weight shows up as fatigue, tension, and even isolation. Naming our emotions out loud is often the first step in lightening the load. Here's the tricky thing about shame. It thrives in silence. It's like mold. The darker and quieter it is, the stronger it gets. And most of us were raised to believe that talking about shame or even acknowledging it was a sign of weakness. So we swallowed it. We smiled through it. We put on our best "I'm fine" face while dragging this invisible weight behind us. But here's the truth. The body always knows. Think about how shame feels in your body. It's not just a thought, it's physical. For some of us, it shows up as a pit in the stomach. For others, it's a tightness in the throat, like the words we want to say get stuck before they can come out. Shame can even make us physically smaller. Shoulders curl forward, gaze drops, voice quiets. The body says, hide. That's not just an emotional experience, it's a full body instruction. And over time, that instruction becomes exhausting. Carrying shame day after day can feel like carrying a weight you can't put down. People describe it as being drained all the time or feeling heavy for no clear reason. Science backs this up too. Studies show that chronic shame is linked to higher levels of inflammation in the body, which means our immune systems literally weaken under the pressure. So when we say shame is toxic, it's not just a metaphor, it's measurable. But here's what's even more damaging. Shame isolates us. It tells us we're not good enough, not lovable, not worthy of belonging. And when we believe that, we withdraw. We stop reaching out, stop asking for help, stop telling the truth about what we're going through, which of course only deepens the weight we're carrying. It becomes this self-reinforcing cycle. The more shame we feel, the more we hide. The more we hide, the heavier the shame gets. The only thing that interrupts that cycle is bringing shame into the light, naming it, saying, this is what I'm feeling. Because shame can't survive empathy. The moment someone looks at you and says, me too, I get it, the grip of shame starts to loosen. That's not just poetic, it's physiological. When we share our stories, our nervous systems shift from threat mode to connection mode. Our bodies release oxytocin, the hormone that calms us down and reminds us that we're safe. And maybe you're thinking, but what if no one understands? What if I tell my story and it's too much? That fear is real, but here's what I know. Shame grows strongest in the dark. And while not everyone has earned the right to hear your story, someone has. Even if it's a therapist, a trusted friend, or a support group. The act of speaking shame out loud transforms it from a crushing backpack into something you can actually put down. Because the truth is, we're not meant to carry shame alone. Our bodies aren't built for that kind of isolation. They're built for connection, for shared humanity, for belonging. And the moment we step into that light, the weight begins to lift. We can't heal what we don't acknowledge. When we pause long enough to ask, where am I carrying this in my body? We begin to connect the dots. And instead of shaming ourselves for being too sensitive or weak, self-compassion opens a doorway for release and recovery. Awareness is where it begins, but let me be clear, it's not always easy. Most of us have been trained to power through discomfort. We numb, we distract, we stay busy. Sitting still long enough to actually notice what's happening inside of us can feel terrifying. It's like opening a closet you've been shoving things into for years. You're not sure what's going to fall out. But when we dare to look, we realize that the body isn't betraying us. It's inviting us. Every ache, every knot in the stomach, every restless night of sleep, it's an invitation to pay attention. And here's the truth. The simple act of noticing shifts everything. There's research that shows when people label their emotions, literally just saying, I feel sad or I feel anxious, their brains move out of survival mode and into problem-solving mode. That's incredible. By naming what we feel, we reduce the intensity of the emotion. It doesn't disappear, but it becomes something we can hold instead of something that holds us. But awareness without compassion can turn into self-criticism. We start thinking, why am I still dealing with this? Why can't I get over it? That's where we lose ourselves. Shame sneaks back in and whispers that we're broken. The antidote is self-compassion. Not the fluffy, just love yourself kind of advice that sounds good on Instagram, but the real, grounded practice of treating ourselves the way we would treat someone we love. If a close friend came to you in tears saying they felt heavy with unprocessed pain, would you tell them to get over it? Of course not. You'd offer kindness, patience, presence. So why do we deny that same compassion to ourselves? I used to believe that if I was hard enough on myself, I could force growth. But all it did was reinforce the cycle of shame. It wasn't until I started practicing self-compassion, really practicing it, that I realized it wasn't weakness, it was strength. It takes courage to look at your own pain with softness instead of judgment. And here's what happens when we do. The body begins to exhale. Literally, muscles relax, breathing deepens, the nervous system shifts from alert to calm. Compassion isn't just emotional, it's physical. It tells the body, you're safe, you don't have to keep carrying this alone. Healing doesn't come from pretending we're fine, it comes from awareness, from naming what hurts, and from offering ourselves the grace to move through it slowly. That's how we lighten the load, not by denying what we feel, but by meeting it with honesty and compassion. Because when we finally allow ourselves to see and soften toward the weight we're carrying, that's when the possibility of healing becomes real. Talk therapy, journaling, and mindfulness matter, but so does movement, breath work, and simply allowing ourselves to feel instead of stuffing things down. Our bodies need rituals of release, whether that's a walk, a deep cry, or practicing stillness. The more we integrate both mind and body in healing, the lighter we become. We live in a culture that teaches us to stay in our heads. We analyze everything. We try to think our way out of pain, like if we just find the right words or the right explanation, the hurt will disappear. But the truth is, some of what we carry can't be solved by thinking alone. It lives in our bodies, and it needs to be released through our bodies. That's why people often feel lighter after a good cry, or calmer after a long run. The body speaks a language that logic can't always translate. And let me tell you, I resisted this idea for a long time. I wanted to believe that journaling and talking were enough. But there was this moment, I was sitting in a yoga class, and halfway through a deep stretch, I just started crying. Out of nowhere, no story attached, no specific memory, just tears. At first I was embarrassed, but then I realized my body was releasing something I hadn't given words to yet. That was healing. Not polished, not pretty, but real. When we give our bodies permission to release, we interrupt the cycle of holding it all in. Movement, whether it's walking, dancing, stretching, or even shaking it out, tells the nervous system, you're safe now. You don't have to stay locked up. Breathwork does the same thing. Deep breathing literally signals to the brain that the danger has passed. It's such a simple act, but it's like hitting the reset button for the whole system. And sometimes release looks like stillness, just sitting in silence long enough to let emotions rise instead of pushing them back down. It can be uncomfortable at first. We're not used to giving ourselves space to feel, but emotions are energy, and when we stop fighting them, they move through us. That's why a wave of sadness, when allowed, eventually passes. Why anger, when acknowledged and expressed safely, loses its grip. What we resist gets stuck. What we allow eventually softens. I think what's most important here is remembering that healing isn't one size fits all. For some, therapy is the anchor. For others, it's movement. For many, it's a combination of practices that engage both mind and body. What matters is that we create rituals that allow release instead of repression, because repression is what keeps the baggage heavy. Release is what makes it lighter. And here's the most beautiful part. When we begin to release, when we practice these small rituals of letting go, the body responds with gratitude. We sleep better, we breathe easier, we laugh more freely. That's not coincidence. It's our bodies saying, thank you for finally listening. Because the truth is, we're not meant to carry emotional baggage forever. We're meant to move through it, release it, and create space for something lighter, something freer, something that feels like coming home to ourselves. So here's the truth we've been circling around. Our bodies are not against us, they are for us. Every knot in the stomach, every tight shoulder, every restless night, it's our body's way of saying, pay attention, something here needs care. Emotional baggage doesn't disappear just because we try to ignore it. It shows up in our bodies, in our relationships, in the way we carry ourselves through the world. But here's the good news. We don't have to carry it forever. We can name it, we can feel it, we can release it. Healing isn't about being perfect or never hurting again. It's about choosing compassion over shame, awareness over avoidance, release over repression. It's about remembering that our stories, even the painful ones, don't make us broken. They make us human. The weight you're carrying may feel overwhelming at times, but you are not powerless against it. Every small act of awareness, every moment of kindness you extend to yourself, every breath, every step toward release, that's progress, that's healing, and that's courage. So as you move forward, I want you to remember this. Your body is wise, your heart is resilient, and you are worthy of a life that feels lighter, freer, and more connected. Healing is not quick and it's not easy, but it is possible. And every single time you choose to listen to yourself, you are already on the path. Good luck on your journey. You've got this.